Can we talk about convict leasing? After the Civil War, the South's economy, society, and government was in shambles. Southern government struggled to raise enough money to repair buildings that were damaged during the Civil War and for the new expenses of things like public education. These states would use a system called convict leasing in order to help with some of those costs. As I mentioned, this all started right after the Civil War, which is also during the time when the 13th Amendment had been passed. The 13th Amendment of the Constitution abolished enslavement except as a punishment for a crime. In response to the 13th Amendment, Southern states began to pass black codes, which were laws that only applied to black people. These codes opened black people to prosecution for offenses like loitering, breaking curfew, vagrancy, or being homeless, having weapons, and not having proof of employment. In addition, children of ineffective parents were placed in apprenticeships where they would be forced to work on plantations. Let's just say the black codes did their job because more black Americans began to be arrested than their white counterparts. And as the number of black American prisoners in the South began to rise, the states began to lease the prisoners out for profit. The Southern governments would lease these prisoners out to private industries like railways, mines, and large plantations. Needless to say, the main beneficiaries of convict leasing were the Southern state governments because the prisoners were not paid for their work and they were able to cut costs by not having to pay for housing and feeding the prisoners. The private companies also benefited by receiving cheap labor and being able to exploit the prisoners however they liked, mostly through brutal working conditions. They were often so brutal that many mines and plantations had secret graveyards for men that were tortured or beaten to death. There were even some prisoners who were forced to fight each other, sometimes to the death, for the entertainment of their supervisors. Convict leasing has often been viewed as a continuation of enslavement. Some argue that the system is still active in different forms today, as the courts have decided that prisoners have no right to be paid for their work.